fantastic introduction. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for the summit. It's been a long time coming, this summit. Evan gave a great introduction, and I think I'd just like to echo those kind of feelings and sentiments. A lot of us who've been to previous meetings really enjoyed them then, and have been kind of dying or waiting for the moment for when we can all get back together and do this. And it's been a lot of work behind the scenes the past few weeks and months, but so worth it. It's absolutely fantastic to get together, and we've had a lot of fun over the last few days with the NF Core Hackathon. So my talk now is just to kind of do a bit of an overview about updates to the NF Core community kind of as a whole, what we've been doing lately, and kind of and basically all the stuff. There's a lot that happens, so go over some of the new things that we have. For those of you who are maybe unfamiliar with NF Core, I think we talk about it a lot, so most of you will probably have heard of it before at least. But the idea is it's kind of a separate community kind of alongside Nextflow. There's obviously a lot of overlap, but where Nextflow is a kind of a powerful programming language that lets you pretty much do whatever you want, we try and standardize, narrow it down, make everything best practices, and try and kind of, it's like a reduced vocabulary, so that this is makes everything very intercompatible and makes it easy for lots of people to collaborate together. So it's a real focus on community and standards and collaboration. We offer several things as a community to you as a user. The most obvious thing is the pipelines that we have, which are kind of there to run out of the box. I made these slides a few days ago, and I think they're out of date. We had, 5 new pipelines added during the last couple of days of the NF Core Hackathon, so apologies for that. I think we're at, 75 pipelines now? And it's important to note that one of the things that's a bit kind of different and a bit strange about NF Core is that we insist that we only have one pipeline per data type or analysis type. So we have one RNA-seq pipeline, we have one methyl-seq pipeline, and so on. And the logic behind that is to try and really focus on this collaboration, say, okay, you want a new feature, don't start a new pipeline for that, come and join the other developers already working on a pipeline, and we add your new feature in. And that way, everyone benefits, you don't have to choose which pipeline you want. Everything is there, and it's really obvious which pipeline you should use. So the fact that we have 70 pipelines, or 75, is an exceptionally high number, because that's 75 different types of analysis, different types of data. We've come primarily from genomics as a background, but also it's worth saying that anyone who's not working in the field of genomics, we're very open and kind of welcoming to other data types and other fields of science and anything really. We increasingly have more and more proteomics pipelines. We have several people working on image analysis pipelines now. Some talk of kind of machine learning and like really anything. I think we had some people in the training last week working with kind of atmospheric studies and things like that. So don't feel scared off that this is a genomics only thing. Come and talk to us, and we'd love to get you involved. In addition to the pipelines themselves, we've built up this kind of ecosystem of our own tooling. And these tools are called NF Core, and they're written in Python, and you can install them. You don't need this installed to run any of the NF Core pipelines. They will run with just Nextflow. But if you have the NF Core tools, they'll help you along. They give you some kind of user-friendly features for finding and for running pipelines, and they're fairly essential for writing pipelines if those pipelines are going to be part of NF Core. They automate an awful lot of the work. So when you look at NF Core pipelines, there's a lot of code in there, but the good news is you don't need to write all that code by yourself. These tools will automate the creation of much of that work and really make the whole process easy for you. And I hope that any of you in the audience who have built NF Core pipelines or worked on them during a hackathon will agree that generally they work really well and they're great. And then there's other things, for example, testing and automation that's the really good reason for kind of building with NF Core, is that you get lots of free stuff kind of out of the box by joining our organization and joining what we've built. So we have lots and lots of things that run on an automated basis to ensure that your pipeline does work in the way you expect, and also works on lots of different platforms. which is difficult to test, because if you're running on your laptop or your academic cluster, it's kind of a lot of work for you to figure out if your pipeline is going to work on the cloud. But we have all that set up for you, ready to test. And then finally, Robert gave a great introduction to this just now. Pretty new is this concept of kind of collaborating on chunks of pipelines. So this is only the last kind of year or two that this has been developed. And now, as well as the concept of sharing and collaborating on pipelines, you can collaborate on modules, which are single processes, single commands. And these can be shared between multiple pipelines, both within NF Core pipelines and outside NF Core pipelines. And so gone are the bad old days of fixing a bug in Picard or something else in one NF Core pipeline, but having the same bug pop up all over the place. Now we fix that bug or make that improvement in one centralized location for that tool, and all of the NF Core pipelines can pull in those updates, and any Nextflow pipeline, Backtopia or any other pipeline, can pull in those same updates. You can also build your own repository of private modules that can sit on your own GitLab or Bitbucket instance, which is sat somewhere. And so you can have a mixture of public NF Core pipelines, modules, and your own private modules within your private repository. So it's a very, very powerful tool, and we're really seeing a lot of pickup, and I think it's really accelerated the speed at which people are developing pipelines. It doesn't end there. As of pretty much this week, we have sub-workflows, and again, this is going to be out of date because I did this like 2 days ago. And sub-workflows are kind of halfway between modules and pipelines. You have maybe a BWA alignment step or combined with SAMTools sorting or something like this. Several processes which are stitched together, but that chunk of processes is very reusable between pipelines. That's a sub-workflow with our terminology. And just like modules, we have the tooling, we have the centralized location for updates. This is hot off the press. This has been the main focus of the NF Core pipeline, NF Core hackathon the past few days. So we're really excited to see how the community picks this up and see what we can build with sub-workflows. So the title of my talk was Community Updates, and I kind of was trying to figure out what the scope should be. How far back do I go? You know, it's been a while since we've had a meeting like this, and I thought, okay, let's just start from the start and just quickly kind of run through some of the key milestones within the NF Core kind of community history. Everything started around 2017, so when we zoom in, we can kind of actually take us back to this meeting, the Nextflow meeting. So this is an event which is kind of close to my heart. And back in 2017, the words NF Core had never been whispered on anyone's lips. It was not being thought about. And we were developing pipelines in Sweden at SciLife Lab and standardizing just within our institute and focusing on collaboration and sharing within Sweden. And I met people at this meeting who are thinking the same things. We're working on the same problems. And we got chatting and we thought, well, let's forget about nationality. Let's forget about institute branding. Let's ditch all of these concepts which are holding us back from working on the same code bases and come up with a new identity which can be open for everyone to contribute to. And this is how NF Core was born. So after a couple of visits, both first to Singapore and then to visit in Germany, we kind of came up with the ground rules of how this new community would work. The first guidelines, the name, the logo. Apologies for not the best design. I didn't realize it would one day have thousands of people contributing. And before I knew it, Paolo had tweeted about it before we were ready in any way whatsoever. And we suddenly had hundreds of people who were very interested in working with us. And then later that year, we had the first hackathon in Stockholm. And that's where we laid down, again, more groundwork. For example, we figured out how we would keep all of the NF Core pipelines synchronized with a common template, which is a really central part of how we work within NF Core. And many of these other kind of foundational things we take for granted now. And in this meeting again in 2018, I presented NF Core for the first time. It was a smaller room. In 2019, we started to get into the swing of things. We've visited more people. I was lucky enough to visit the Crick in London, where I met Harshal, who many of you know really well. Flew to San Francisco and met Olga, who used to be in the core team at the Zuckerberg Biohub, and many others, and we started to really kind of get this community feeling going. We had another hackathon. I don't have any photos of this one because I was busy having babies at the time, so I wasn't there, but we started having kind of more regular hackathons, and again, had my first ever community updates talk about NF Core at the Nextflow meeting 2019. This was a long time ago, and yet this is the last time I gave this talk. And that's kind of why I thought I may as well just do everything, because the history before the last talk was very little. More hackathons followed. In 2020, we had an in-person hackathon at the Francis Crick, organized by Harshal, which was kind of starting to up the level of participation and the kind of the standards and how much effort we put into the events, and it was a massive success. And then COVID happened. And that was the last in-person event we had for NF Core until this week. We had to obviously pivot. This was a period of massive, intense activity within the NF Core pipeline as COVID struck. As many people in the audience will be familiar with, the world of bioinformatics was kind of rapidly turned on its head, and many people were suddenly had their day job changed and were working on different things to do with COVID. And the result of that within the NF Core community was many people coming together and building the viral recon pipeline, which is used for COVID analysis. It's the one that Evan mentioned, which is now being used in Senegal. It's being used all over the world in many countries for routine COVID genomic analysis. And that largely came out of one of the first online hackathons, I think. We moved on in 2020. We got the first funding we ever received, which was from the Zuckerberg initiative. And that was the Essential Open Source of Science grant, EOS, Cycle 2. I'll talk more about that in a moment. And that started to enable many things. And in 2021, we started this program of weekly talks called Bite Size, which has become a major feature of NF Core. It's online only. 2021, we were really into the swing of online events. We started running these, we said we'd do at least 2 hackathons a year, and you start to see familiar screenshots like Gather Town, which people watching online will hopefully be enjoying at the moment. Started to get kind of proper community culture at this point, kind of common memes looking for socks and all the silliness that we have fun with, and kind of increasingly more and more people coming to events. It's kind of an exponential graph when you look at how many people attend our events. It's just doubles and doubles and doubles. And so that was really like a lot of fun, and we started to build a framework for that. In 2021, the first CSI grant was 1 year, and in 2021 we were really lucky to get not one but 2 grants from Zuckerberg. We got the renewal of the EOS grant in cycle 4 with more money, and we also got the diversity and inclusion grant, which was only open to previous EOS grantees. And this had a transformational change on NF Core. Then to bring us up to date, 2022, we had another online hackathon in March, which was a great success. That one we focused on documentation, which is not the sexiest of kind of titles, but it was great fun, and we got loads of stuff done. And then that brings us to the last few crazy, insane weeks. We had training online, first ever online training for combined Nextflow and NF Core, which was free and open to anyone, which was last week. Feels like months ago. We did that as part of a preparation for the NF Core hackathon we had this week. We thought, great, we'll get some beginners to do some training and they'll join the hackathon. We'll have maybe 30 or 40 people join. We'll have a chilled out time in Gather Town. Let's try and run it across different time zones so we don't have any barriers for people. And we had over 800 people register. At which point we panicked and pivoted to using YouTube and Slack, but what an amazing 3 days. So thank you to any of you that joined us for that. It was brilliant fun. But those of us who actually tried to do all 3 time zones on the Wednesday, I think we're regretting it by the end of the day. But it went fantastically well. It's so well that we've got to do it again. So that was a great experience. And this week we had the last few days of the hackathon, and now we've got the Nextflow Summit. What an amazing journey. So how do you build a community? What's been important to the community? This may be a little shallow, but I think one of the things that I have a soft spot for is swag. And this is one of the things that sort of funding allowed us to do, is actually sort of like start playing with this idea and seeing what we could think. And to save time, we bought a load of swag for several events in one go, and this is what turned up at Cubic in Germany, at which point we kind of realized we might actually need to buy some storage as well. And as a result of this, apologies for those of you whose Twitter feeds have been filled with photos of socks and mugs and stickers and who knows what. Yeah, exactly. Hands up if you recognize your feet. So we've had a lot of kind of fun building community around this kind of thing, and it's even sort of transferred into this kind of a meme with a custom emoji on the NF Core Slack that you can use, and hidden socks on GatherTown and things. And as of this week, we have 2 new emoji. We have the umbrella, and we have an apron. So may that list continue to grow. But of course, there's a serious side to that, which is as we build this, have fun as we build this community, or kind of organically, has a real material effect on what we develop and the tools that we produce. And if you look at this, this is a very simple plot. We have lots of statistics on the NF Core website, but this one is maybe the most important of all. The number of pipelines that are available through NF Core. So in red, you have the number which are currently in development, and green shows you how many have had at least one stable release. And you can see there's just no hold up. We're just pushing out new pipelines all the time and just continuing to grow and to scale. And this is just making the resource that we're providing to the community is just bigger and bigger. And that's super rewarding to me. And again, if I take this screenshot next week, there'll be a little at the end. If you know where to look, you can see peaks from other events as well. And just to put some of that into numbers, we're in the thousands of Slack users now and on Twitter. We have thousands of GitHub contributors, whether that contribution might be through fixing bugs and committing code, or just making issues and kind of reporting things. And yeah, tens of thousands of pull requests and commits. That blows my mind. And we're all over the world, pretty much. There's some places we'd like to have better presence for sure, but mostly where people certainly are working with genomics, we have some presence. So to push on with that funding I mentioned, what were we able to do? We could hire people was the main thing that changed, and these people now are funded to work on NF Core, which is a really new idea, either through Chan Zuckerberg Initiative money entirely or partially, or also with co-funding from SciLife Lab, both for the data center and the national genomics infrastructure, Cubic and Seqera. This allows us to have people like Julia and Matthias who can dedicate their time to fixing the bugs in the infrastructure code, which is so critical. And also the 3 of us at Seqera, who are newly minted developer advocates and can focus on outreach in specific parts of the world. So if you're listening, or if you're from especially these regions, get to know Chris and Marcel or myself, and we'll talk about how we can kind of push outreach in your regions, because we're really keen to get more people involved all over the world. And just to touch on the bite-sized talks, which I mentioned, I said it's weekly, which sounds kind of nice, but when you actually start to look at the list of the bite-sized talks which are available on the NF Core website, you start to get an idea for just how many we've done. And this came up in the quiz this week, at the hackathon. We've got 51 bite-sized talks available on YouTube for anyone to watch at any time, covering everything from making your first ever pull request on GitHub all the way through to developing DSL2 modules at detail and in length. Evan covered the mentorship, so I won't spend too long on this, but this is a real pleasure to organize, and to see this play out is really rewarding, and I'm looking forward to the next round. There's a blog post, and also Suchitra from Nepal. We were hoping she would be here in person, and unfortunately had problems with visas. But she has a poster which is available online, so if you're interested, please do check out poster number 16 on the Summit website. And if you're at all interested in this from either side, mentor or mentee, please do have a look at the webpage, sign up, and spread it to anyone and everyone you can. Final section. So something else we did for the first time this year is we invited the NF Core team out for a mini retreat in Sweden, to my house, basically, at least for the first day, and went for a swim in a very cold lake. I went for a walk in the forest, but also did some, this is just nauseating, apologies. Had a lot of fun, but also really got to have in-depth discussions and a kind of a mini hackathon of our own. We did a lot of things in 3 days, but one of the things which is changing slightly is, until now, we've had a core team that just sort of does everything, has all the keys, all the admins and everything, and we're trying to sort of, as the community scales, we're struggling slightly to keep up with some things, and so we're bringing in a few more kind of teams. We basically built this around what was already happening, we just gave things a name. So we have a new kind of steering group who are kind of involved with the funding. The core team stays the same. We have got new teams for maintainers, outreach, infrastructure, and official team at last for safety. So we're in the process of writing all of these decisions up as documentation on the NF Core website, so stay tuned. And especially if you're interested in being a maintainer and kind of helping us to triage and handle all of the issues and pull requests, let us know. Final thing, I'm running too slow. We've been running tests on the cloud for a while, so every time we release an NF Core pipeline, we do a full-scale test automatically through Tower, which is kind of given to us by Seqera, and runs on AWS, and we're able to view those results on the NF Core website interactively, which is super cool, just being able to click on a website for the first time, see the exact files produced, click through, look at them, download them, benchmark them, do whatever you like for every version of that pipeline. We're super grateful to AWS for providing this to us. It's made a huge difference, and we've been running this for a couple of years now. And I'm also super excited to announce that as of last week, we'll be able to start doing this both on AWS, but also on Microsoft. So we'll be able to ensure that all of the NF Core pipelines are truly kind of cloud compatible and work everywhere they can, almost. So yeah, I'm really excited about that. So thank you, Microsoft. With that, I'll stop talking. I won't hold you up any longer. Thank you for your attention, and please do, if you're not already, come and join us in NF Core. We'll have a lot of fun. We get a lot of cool stuff done, and just jump in and get involved.
Okay, Phil, we've got some questions first off is from Maxime. He wants to know, can we include pipelines as sub-workflows?
You're just causing trouble. We have to call it a sub workflow, though. It's fine. No, that's not.
It's a no.
Yeah.
Okay. Then we've got a question from Bruno. He wants to know, would there be any harm in having NF Core keep track of unofficial pipelines? For example, like the pipeline we saw before from Robert around Backtopia, to improve their discoverability. And for the context, I've become aware of plenty of Nextflow pipelines that are scattered over papers and GitHub.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, this is, I've been sort of changing my mind a little bit about this. For a long time, I sort of almost wanted to get everyone to focus on NF Core to bring in collaborations and everything. But as the tooling and the community, the general Nextflow community has grown and got so much stronger, it's difficult to ignore that there are fantastic pipelines around which are not NF Core, and maybe using NF Core components or not, but still. Yes, we have plans for this, not within NF Core, but within the Nextflow community. Hopefully, start of next year, you'll start to see some, I'm not going to go into detail because we haven't done any of it yet, and it might change, but we've got ideas for how we'll bring together a resource to have a centralized collection place for such pipelines.
Okay, I've got a question from Raul that says, have the needs of NF Core been a guide for feature development in Nextflow?
Absolutely, yeah. And that's one of the real kind of joys, really, of seeing. We're a bit more flexible than Nextflow, and sometimes the Nextflow core software is kind of a lean, mean racing machine. Paolo keeps it like straight. You know, you try and get a pull request from Paolo, he'll notice it. But that means that within NF Core, we have a bit of flexibility to just kind of play around and trying things out. And some of those things kind of do mature and end up in core Nextflow. A good example of that is the Nextflow schema, which Julia will be talking about later this week. Where it started off as a purely NF Core thing and kind of grew, and we managed to generalize it to work with any Nextflow pipeline. Now we're building a core Nextflow plugin to handle this, and will be available for any Nextflow pipeline. So there is like a progression there for certain features, definitely.
And a question from Maxime again. He wants to know when the next training is planned for. I think that's self. He's going to do it, run it himself, I believe.
I was going to say, it depends if you're running it. You get to
You're
choose the name,
volunteering, like from that one.
We'll probably run one sometime in the spring at the very least, I think.
And a question from Marcel: can non-bioinformatics pipelines be part of NF Core?
Yeah, so it hasn't really happened yet, so we haven't really had to head-on confront that conversation, but I think that generally we're pretty open to that. And basically, from my personal point of view, take off my NF Core hat and everything, I want as many people to benefit from the tooling and the features that we develop within NF Core as possible, and there's no reason that I see to limit that just to bioinformatics. We love the bioinformatics community. I'm a bioinformatician, and I think we'll always have that as our kind of core, but absolutely interested in getting people from other fields to come and talk to us. And if it's difficult to do that, so if you are one of those people, you can come and be a pioneer with us and talk to us, let the core team know, and we'll do everything we can to support you.
And Shimran wants to know a little bit of what was the inspiration for the half-eaten apple?
So it's like one of these like jet-lagged on a plane seemed like a good idea at the time kind of moments. The Singapore A-Star Institute and Cubic in Germany were both kind of, and myself, we were all core teams, we were all core genomics bioinformatics groups. And at first we thought that NF Core would be for core bioinformatics groups working at institutes. We had no idea it would turn into this. And so that's kind of why we called it NF Core, and because it's an Apple core. It's not half-eaten, it's an Apple core.
Yeah. We got a couple more. One of them is from Lee Bang from AWS. He's asking, do you have any insights on making the workflows cloud ready from the start? So we saw before around the cloud testing, some of the things that's been done. My feeling is, I guess, a lot of the stuff has come from typically development and Slurm-like systems and the like. Any kind of particular things that we can think about to make those pipelines, I guess, cloud ready from day one?
Yeah. The simplest thing is don't rely on any file paths. Don't ever look outside your work directory because you might be on cloud in object storage. There's a bunch of other kind of things. Some of that stuff we handle within the NF Core template where we just have like accumulated experience of like, this random little thing doesn't work on clouds, but we fixed it here and it's available to everyone. I think, are we building a blog post at the moment about how to build sort of best practices within Nextflow pipelines? So that will probably have some good tips in if you keep an eye on your Twitter feeds and like for the next few days.
I've seen there's some options, for example, in Sarek where you don't want to like split up the pipeline into 10,000 pieces if you want to go on cloud. And I think there's a lot of optimizations we can do there as we build it out as well.
Yeah.
Final question. Have you considered using unit testing as part of the automated testing of NF Core?
Yeah, so that's actually how the idea for modules started, because we were thinking about how to do unit testing. So for us, I don't know, I'm not an expert. I'm notoriously bad at writing tests, but in Python anyway. But for me, the unit of an Nextflow pipeline is a process, and that's why we said that modules are only ever one process, and each module in the centralized repository has its own set of tests and is tested automatically. So that's sort of our unit testing, and then we're currently building up a more kind of sophisticated testing at sub-workflow level and also then at pipeline level.
Great. I think it's the last questions on that. So we'll bring up our next speaker. Thanks a lot, Phil.